From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
I'm Michelle Rook. The court rules with the ethanol industry on small refinery exemptions, but that's not the end of the story.
We continue to follow the latest on the coronavirus and what it means for farm country. From canceling events,
I was really excited to get to see one in person, and now I'm not going to
the bigger financial picture.
At the end of the day, this place is was always built for risk transfer, price discovery.
Team coverage as the nation and the world continue to deal with the impacts now touching everyone's lives. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The deepening coronavirus crisis is continuing to send stocks and futures into a slide. Drop on Thursday, triggering another brief shutdown in trading on Wall Street for the second time this week. The latest drop coming amid a cascade of cancellations and shutdowns across the world and the possible impact it could have on the overall economy. And commodities, they're continuing to follow stocks with live feeder cattle, lean hogs locked limit down on fears a pandemic will curb meat demand. Trading of the commodities also impacted, with the CME Group saying the Chicago trading floor would close after business hours today in response to the virus.
At the end of the day, this place was always built for risk transfer, price discovery.
There was a bit of an uptick on Wall Street after the New York Fed said it would step up purchases of Treasury securities. Fears about the virus causing event cancellations across the country. One of the most high-profile events in farm country affected right now is the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, canceled this week right in the middle of the show. AgDay national reporter Betsy Gibbon joins us. And Betsy, you talked with some people who had to load up their animals and just go home.
Clinton, the people I talked with were planning on attending the stock show, and they are either just returning home or didn't even make the trip because the event was canceled.
It's already been a long trip for some families on the road to the Houston Stock Show and Rodeo. A 10-hour trek for Jay Johnson of Happy, Texas. His kids, traveling with friends, were supposed to show heifers. They unloaded for a couple of hours, then had to get back on the road.
We loaded, headed down to Houston. Heifers were on the trailer about 12 hours, and then we unloaded. We weren't on the ground for very long until we found out the show had been canceled.
Shelby Wachter is on the judging team at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Her judging team didn't even get on the road before the show was canceled.
Being from the Midwest, I've never seen a Brahmin bull before in my life. I've seen pictures, but I've never seen them in person. So we've spent the last few practices learning to be able to see past their differences and judge them like stock. And so I was really excited to get to see one in person, and now I'm not going to.
She says it would have been a good opportunity for the collegiate judgers to compete against other universities.
So while this isn't my last judging contest in college, I will have a whole other semester of them. This was kind of one to end off this semester before we go into the summer.
Connor Crownover from Sunray, Texas is a senior and has been showing pigs for over a decade and has attended all of the majors.
You're in there feeding them, brushing them, and walking them. So right. Potentially you're out there to an hour to 2 hours a day.
Now that it's canceled, are you bummed?
Yeah, I really am, because this has been my last year to show, and at the past 2 stock shows that I've been to, we have not done so well, and we were really thinking we were going to do pretty good at the Houston Stock Show.
The show also usually offers financial incentives such as college scholarships to the winners and inner city kids in Texas. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. More events canceled or being held virtually. The All-Tech Ideas Conference, the Dairy Farmers of America annual meeting, the Farm Bureau Young Farmer and Rancher Conference, the National Food Policy Conference, and the World Agri-Tech Innovation Summit. That's along with a host of colleges and sporting events, and that's just the short list. Meanwhile, questions are continuing to be asked about what all this means for the China Phase 1 trade deal. Chief U.S. Ag Trade Negotiator Greg Dowd saying right now there's no way of knowing if the coronavirus will impact China's ability to fulfill its purchase commitments. But despite the turmoil, he says implementation of the deal is on schedule. Dowd saying that U.S. officials talk with their Chinese counterparts every day and that China has not asked for a reprieve from their commitments. There appears to be some movement. China has published a list of 88 U.S. suppliers that can export distillers' dried grains to the country. The move may indicate that China is preparing to allow imports of U.S. DDGs, which is a byproduct of corn ethanol used as animal feed. Now, China used to be the largest purchaser of U.S. DDGs. The president addressing the nation Wednesday night, announcing a 30-day restriction on travel from Europe to the U.S. starting today due to the virus. President Trump saying on Twitter later that the restriction stops people, not goods. The European Union is upset with that announcement.
The coronavirus is a global crisis, not limited to any continent, and it requires cooperation rather than unilateral action. The European Union disapproves of the fact that the U.S. decision to impose a travel ban was taken unilaterally and without consultation.
The travel suspension doesn't apply to all of Europe. It applies only to 26 countries, including France, Germany, and hard-hit Italy, not the UK or Ireland. And by the way, the European stock index ended Thursday with its biggest loss on record. On Capitol Hill, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin are negotiating coronavirus relief legislation that the Republican-led Senate and the White House would support. The proposal by House Democrats would provide free coronavirus testing and paid sick leave, among other provisions. The goal, to get a bill signed by the president quickly. We're going to have much more on economic ideas the president has laid out and what they could mean for agriculture coming up in analysis. Now, the battle over those small refinery waivers is moving to a new level. The renewable fuels industry raising concerns that the EPA may join the petroleum industry in a court battle defending the exemptions. This comes after the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously ruled against the agency. Michelle Rook updates us on the case.
The EPA is again sending mixed signals to the biofuels industry. That's after Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue told farmers at Commodity Classic the favorable 10th Circuit Court ruling would be used to set small refinery exemptions.
We think it's going to limit the number of small refinery waivers extensively, and we think that's where the policy is heading for the White House.
The Renewable Fuels Association brought the case, and Robert White says the ruling stated EPA didn't have authority to grant the waivers based on not having consecutive waivers in past years.
That essentially ruled out all but 7 in that year, the court case back in 2016. They used the same methodology in 17 and 18 and now have 19 pending and, of course, 20 right around the corner.
NCGA's president said corn farmers hailed the favorable ruling.
The 10th Circuit Court case was a big win for us. And hopefully, you know, it showed exactly what we've been talking about, that the waivers they were giving were not legal.
The industry was also pleased to initially hear EPA would apply the rule nationally and halt the action that eroded 4 billion gallons of ethanol from the RFS in 2016 to 2018.
Going forward, it gives us a little glimmer of hope that maybe we can stop those or at least reduce the amount of waivers that they have been giving.
It could mean billions of gallons moving forward and maybe some retroactively, especially the ones that were specifically mentioned in the case.
However, EPA is once again sending conflicting signals. Even though EPA says they will follow the court ruling when issuing SREs in the future, they are appealing the decision. Biofuels advocate Monty Shaw says that puts the SREs back in limbo.
If they appeal it, not only are they not doing the right thing, but it's the second time in a row where they've kind of said, here's what we're going to do, and then, you know, there's like a bait and switch and they go down another path.
He says it also discredits the president and his September 12th promise to the biofuels industry.
So it's not just about doing the wrong thing, but it's like, how do we build trust?
However, he says the disconnect just illustrates the power of the oil lobby.
The refiners do what they do. They're a very rich and powerful industry, and their supporters, like the senators from the oil states and others, weighed in with the president.
So while the appeal moves forward, their message is to follow the court decision and apply it nationwide. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Severe weather hitting portions of the country's midsection, and it's not over yet. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joins us with an update. Cindy.
That's right, Clinton. There'll be another round of potentially severe weather today, this time a little bit further to the west than what we were seeing yesterday. The main focus around central and western Texas, but you could see that also affecting parts of New Mexico and also into parts of Oklahoma. Now, on top of that, some of the areas that got severe weather yesterday are going to be seeing another potential for some more heavy rain in spots. And then on the north end of things, there's going to be a potential for some snow today in parts of the plains. So a very busy day weather-wise. So let's change gears. Look at what one producer in Wisconsin spotted out in a field. Known as Town Line Farmer on Twitter, he says those bear cubs have a good home. At least they do for now. I'll have a lot more on your forecast coming up in just a little bit. Clinton?
Coming up, you heard the president talking about providing low-interest economic loans to small businesses. What does that mean for farmers? One expert walks us through the plan. And later, the news isn't all bad. Wait until you see what these firefighters did for one little boy in the country.
Let's try to take a look at the row crops, especially soybeans. I've been talking about them pretty much now every week, and it's because of China and what's been happening with the tariffs, and now obviously with the coronavirus. Let's see where we close today in May. We're looking at trying to close above the old lows. That would probably be something that would be some sort of good news on a day that we're trying to find anything out there that's going to make us feel better. So I've mentioned before all day today that the dollar has gotten stronger overnight, again making our exports, or at least our products that we sell abroad, not as competitive. That's not a good thing, is it? So that's another thing that's going to really hurt. And let me tell you, 9% lower on the stock market as we go to tape here. That's definitely not normal, and that's definitely not settling down. So we're going to have to see this through at least for another month or two, and who knows if it ends before then or now, but it doesn't matter what we throw at this problem. Fiscally, money is not going to solve the virus. The virus has got to solve the virus.
Leaders in Washington are already looking for ways to stem the economic crisis brought on by the coronavirus concerns. The Small Business Administration will start immediately providing low-interest economic loans in affected states and territories to help small businesses overcome temporary economic disruptions caused by the virus. Now, the president is asking for an additional $50 billion to fund that program. The Treasury Department may defer tax payments, and there's also a push to see payroll taxes rolled back. Now, I spoke with business and tax expert Paul Neiffer about those different proposals from the AgDay newsroom. Walk us through some of those SBA, Small Business Administration type things, and will that help?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely help some of the small businesses out there. Now, on the farm side, I'm not sure how much, farmers would really participate in this, because I think so far, probably the farmers aren't being directly impacted. Yes, pricing is dropping a little bit, but I don't think they're really being impacted by this crisis. Whereas if you look at the travel industry, the oil industry, and so on, they're definitely being immediately impacted by this virus. So I think they're definitely a help. Now, $50 billion sounds like a lot of money, but if you spread it over a couple million, small businesses out there, we're maybe only talking $10,000 or $15,000 of benefits. So to be determined whether it'll actually help or not.
The Treasury Department is talking about deferring some of the tax payments without interest or penalties for certain individuals and businesses. Say that could provide up to $200 billion in additional liquidity here in the U.S. Do you see that making a big difference either?
What I'm hearing a lot of chatter is that the IRS may delay the actual payment and filing of the return all the way until October 15th. Now, it may not go quite that long, but if it is October 15th, that's a 6-month interest-free loan on maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars that some of our farmers and other taxpayers will have to pay. Now, I also hear some chatter that it may not apply to larger individuals, or it may apply that as long as you're paying at least 70% of your income taxes by April 15th, you're not going to be hit with interest and penalties. So there's still a lot of details that we have to iron out on this whole thing. Also, over on the estimated tax payment side, we also hear that they might want to delay having, now this really wouldn't apply to farmers because they don't owe one until January 15th of 2021, but for other individuals and corporations, they may not have to pay any estimated tax payment until, let's say, September or October, and that would certainly be helpful. That does provide liquidity. That may even be more of a bigger boost to the economy than delaying filing tax returns. So I think that definitely could help.
Meteorologist is Cindy Clausen. Take a look at our national map. And Cindy, we're watching that front down on the southern tier of states and how that's probably going to move across the Midwest.
Yeah, and it's going to bring kind of a mixture of several different things. You're going to have some rain on the south side, some thunderstorms, but some snow moving into the plains. Overall, it's a pretty complicated weather map because we have a system over in the Great Lakes that's been bringing some rain and snow and even some stronger storms along that front. Out in the northwest, things are going to get very active as well, but this is the system that's going to be bringing that snow to parts of the plain states. So let's put this into motion. Rain and snow moving off to the northeast. You can see that rain and even that snow building into parts of the central plains. Things get more active as the low pressure continues to pull a little bit more eastward into the northwest. Now, high pressure will kind of start to keep things drier in parts of the eastern Corn Belt until all of this continues to move to the east. So as we head into the overnight hours, we're going to start to see that rain coming back into parts of Missouri and then eventually Illinois. We're going to see that snow moving through much of the central and northern plains, heading into the central and eventually eastern Corn Belt as well, but dying down just a little bit, kind of moving a little further south as we get through the day on Saturday. We see a lot more rain than snow here, but a lot of unsettled weather in the Pacific Northwest as well, rain and some upper elevation snow. First, let's look at the rain. This is the past 24 hours. You can see that big focus right here along, especially in Kentucky. Also another bullseye in the Southwest, California, Arizona as well. Heading into the next 24 hours, you see some of those same areas are going to get hit again, especially around Kentucky, but you can see that additional moisture here in Texas and Oklahoma, more moisture in the southwest. You can see a lot of the country is going to be seeing some wet weather over the next 24 hours. And as far as snowfall, again, this is just one model, but keep an eye on things. Our model is showing potentially 4 to 8 inches in parts of Kansas, also some parts of Nebraska as well, and of course the higher mountains, higher elevations in the west and into Montana as well, and even some of those lower elevations will see some higher amounts as well. Temperature-wise, it's not too bad for this time of the year. We're still dealing with some pretty warm air down in Texas, but it's not that cold even in the northern stretches. The real cold air is still stuck up in Canada. Heading into the overnight hours we go, and it's still not that bad as far as seasonal temperatures. We're going to see those temperatures ranging from 19 in Bismarck, still in the 70s for those overnight lows. And then heading into tomorrow, it does cool down a little bit, especially in the north central United States. Busy on the jet stream as well. We've got that trough with a cutoff low in the west, and we have another trough developing with another cutoff low. So things stay really active there. That real cold air is still circulating in Canada, meaning that we don't see any super cold temperatures, at least as we get into the next week or so. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Swiss home Oregon, cooler with rain today and a high of 50 degrees. Heading on over to Colby, Kansas, rain and snow early, but then snow showers this afternoon with a high of 38. And Cheddar, South Carolina, spotty showers with a high of 72.
Still ahead, the threat over African swine fever isn't over yet. And later, the promise of a feel-good story to start your morning in the country.
Weathering the Storm, a special report focusing on Mother Nature's potential impact on the 2020 growing season, is coming to AgDay, U.S. Farm Report, and AgriTalk later this month. Brought to you by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, weather or not.
More on the coronavirus and the impact on agriculture. The FDA now halting most inspections of food facilities outside of the U.S. The restrictions lasting through April. The FDA saying border protection officers will continue to examine produce arriving at U.S. points of entry, but food safety inspections at foreign facilities are postponed. And African swine fever is still an issue in China. Reuters reporting the country's agriculture ministry has found a new case in Sichuan province. They say it came from pigs illegally transported from other provinces. Officials saying it was found on a truck transporting 111 pigs from other provinces. 7 of the herd were culled. The deadly disease in pigs was first detected in China back in August of 2018. It's believed to have cut the pig herd in China by up to 50%. Coming up, amid all the fear right now, some hope. A story that we don't want to have get lost this week about the best of us. Next. We know you're hearing about a lot of negative stuff going on in the world right now. It seems everywhere you turn, there's a new issue caused by fears about the coronavirus, the sell-off in the markets, farm and sport events getting canceled, school closings, even stores running out of toilet paper. But there are still positive stories happening, and this is one of them, involving a kid's favorite stuffed friend and some kind-hearted firefighters. You see, someone was playing around and threw a stuffed bear named Rockstar Freddy on top of the roof of this school in Cape Coral, Florida. The bear's human friend, Ashton, was losing sleep over it. So the school asked firefighters nearby if they wouldn't mind rescuing Rockstar Freddy, and how can you say no to a request like that? So responders set up the department's cherry picker, and the rescue unfolded on the school's roof. The operation was a success, and the kindergartner was reunited with his beloved bear. It was a gesture that was heartfelt and selfless, and just what we needed today. Absolutely. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.